everybody, and happy Monday. Dennis Fithian, ready to kick things off on the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Now, sometimes when you think of a question to ask, you look at it and you think, I don't know, is that really a good question? Just moments before I came on, I came up with a question. I put it down, a question of the day. And as I sat here, then the next couple of minutes, I got a real banger for the people out there that like Michigan football as it applies to coming up this year and something that you saw last year. We will get to that coming up. It's always great being with you here. I got that question of the day locked and loaded and ready to put out to the people to see what they think and what they come up with. And also today, looking for some college football items. I was going to read about the forthcoming lawsuit where the summary of the House versus the NCAA settlement, a very long read. That's not really for a show like this till it comes out. Say, okay, here's what they have to do. Let's see it. But there was a top 10 ranking that it said post-spring top 10 ranking. It was from ESPN, and it was just out this morning. And I thought, well, that's fresh. Let's go with it. And Michigan is included, and so are a lot of the teams that they're going to play. So we'll break that out. A brand spanking new preseason, post-spring, top 25 college football ranking. A lot of words, but you get it, what they're doing and what we're going to do coming up. But we start where we left off on Friday, and that is with portal news. The portal was popping for Michigan on Friday, and then it kept popping, and then it kept popping. And I have to apologize to Josh Henschke, who is the publisher at the Maize and Blue Review, because on Friday, when Michigan got the safety Wes Walker from the Vols, somebody right here in real time typed in, does that mean Michigan is done with Mangham, the safety from Michigan State? And I had saw Josh on Friday get asked that very question on the Den on the Maize and Blue Review. And he said, no, it doesn't have anything to do with it. And Mangham was on campus. Now, look, I took a step back from that and thought that I would use, I don't know if it's my years of experience, whatever it was. I thought, Michigan is out there in the portal looking for some additions with the defensive backs. And, they've got some safeties out there that are interested. Well, they got the safety. And so my thought is that even though Josh had said, no, it's not necessarily true, I said, you know what? It probably is true that they're not going to get a safety. Why would a safety? With Michigan, you can make a case that they don't even have a starting, but they do have a starting safety spot because Rod Moore got hurt. Even though Zeke Berry seemed to fill in, when I say fill in adequately, he was there at the spring game and they made him available after the game. And the other players were talking about Berry and his ability there at safety. But clearly Michigan, when they went back over their 15 practices, including the spring game, and looked at the film, they identified safety, whether it was a starting safety position or depth or rotation at safety, however they determined it. And then sure enough, Mangham ended up pulling the trigger on Friday and saying he's coming to the Maize and Blue. Now, out of all of the portal additions, I hope Mangham really pops. And it has to do with the Michigan State rivalry. State fans were just so, and you understand it. You lose a player and, you lose your mind a little bit. You get, you just, you turn on them, you do all the things that you're probably not proud of the next day, certainly the next week. And, Michigan State fans, they they did that, and they went after him and all that. So that's the reason that I'm hoping that Mangham really turns out, especially on the backyard brawl, October the 26th. I hope he comes up with a couple picks, and that would make it kind of cool. Now you could say, hey, I thought you weren't into all that back and forth rivalry stuff. Sometimes I jump in there and participate like I am right now. Now, speaking of participation, folks, you can participate in Michigan Talk all day, all night. Questions, uh, reading for your enjoyment, all Michigan, all the time. You do that by joining up the Maize and Blue Review. You can do that today by going to michigan.rivals.com. Why not? You like discussing Michigan with like-minded folks. That's what you get. That discussion and news on recruiting and the portal, football and basketball and other sports. We'll see you over there on the Den. It's an enjoyable experience. Now, so here's Mangham. He's a big safety. He was in the postseason awards. His name showed up on the All Big Ten honorable mention at safety. So you say, well, these guys any good? Michigan State's defense really sucked last year. Now, that's what Michigan State fans were saying. Well, good riddance. Our defense sucked. And so, get this guy out of here. I don't know. Is there a point to that or not? Yeah, your defense did really, stink. But, you can be a good player and a productive player and, still play on a team. We could come up with a million instances in probably every sport where this is the case. And so, Mangham, it feels to me like you get an all Big Ten honorable mention when you're playing on the worst team in the conference, one of the worst teams in the conference. That seems pretty noteworthy, but he's coming in and he's a big, lanky, rangy safety. And I like this photo of him at Spartan Stadium coming up with the interception that he gets with his hands right in front of the face mask. That was a nice addition. Number 8, if you're scoring at home, or if you're just watching this pod and you're not scoring at home. But if you are, that's number 8. Number 9 came later in the day, or was it next day on Saturday? I forget now. All the portal stuff kind of runs together, but Michigan was able to land out of the transfer portal a corner. Ricky Johnson, a corner out of UNLV. He was listed at 6'1". 6'1" corner, 6'2" safety. Ricky Johnson III, who spent his time at UNLV, was going to go to Washington State and flipped his commitment and is headed to Ann Arbor. So Michigan has now 9. They had the Magnificent 7 that we were talking about on Friday, Elite 8, and now a fine 9 portal additions. And so I'm going to take some of your feedback, but the way I looked at it, and you say, well, are any of these guys any good? And again, yeah, there's going to be some fine additions. The first half, for the longest time, Michigan just got the offensive lineman from Northwestern, Josh Preeb, who was called in the spring Michigan's best offensive lineman. Jayshon Barham. Anybody that watched practice is immediately taken aback by a Barham and his appearance out on the field, and then they watch him run and watch him flow to the ball, and it's like he seems like he is an instant star. Just all you need to do is lay your eyes on him and watch him just go through a set of drills, and he's just like instant star. So Preeb and Barham. And then Michigan last year went out. They needed a place kicker. Remember Jake Moody? Everybody's like, Moody. I said it myself. Jake Moody's going to be the toughest guy to replace for Michigan. Well, enter James Turner for Louisville, who came on and he was great. James Turner was great for the Champs last year, making kick after kick, especially late in the year when the money was on the table. James Turner you're going to say, if somebody threw the question at who's underrated player for Michigan last year, under the radar star that contributed to the national championship team, I would immediately say James Turner. Guy was awesome. Remember, Michigan brought in another kicker late, Hudson Hollenbach, kicker punter. No, he's 6'3". If things, they didn't know, just give you a little, you're trying to go for a championship. Why not add another leg there for some competition? Why not get a leg up on the opponents with another punter? And they did that last year. And then Michigan went down to Jonesboro, Arkansas, and grabbed Dominic Zavada. Now, if I would have just heard that name, I would have said, hey, that sounds like a good blue liner for Brandon Naranjo and company over there at the Yost Ice Arena. But no, he's a kicker. Dominic Zavada from Arkansas State. And then Michigan, they were stuck on the Preeb and Barnum, and then they got Zavada, and then it started rolling. The ball started rolling post spring. CJ Charleston, some depth at wide receiver, 6-foot wide receiver. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Amarian Walker comes back, and Amarian Walker is, what do we say about Amarian Walker? We've seen him a little bit. Great athlete. That's what I would say about Amarian Walker. That's what you would say too. The biggest highlight that we have from Amarian Walker is actually some of his combine numbers, where he did a 3-cone in what would be, if he ran that or put that time up at the NFL Combine, it would be the greatest combine number ever in a 3-cone drill. So, he's got that in his back pocket, which is not nothing. Now you say, yeah, you'd rather have a guy do it on the field. We all agree about that. But what it says is that he has some potential, and that he is an incredible athlete. And, he just didn't put that together, not this past spring, but the spring before with Michigan, where, he just didn't have a good spring game. I don't know about the rest of the spring. And so there he was, and, he's looking to find a position, a home, and maybe it is wide receiver. Michigan, as you look at the depth chart, you look at the position group of wide receiver, they need, in theory, a tall receiver that can go up and be a mismatch if required. And Walker is 6'3", and he's an incredible athlete, so maybe he will be that guy. So that's where it was. And then with the portals, and then just as last week, they just started coming in every other day. Wesley Walker, 6'1" safety from Tennessee. A lot of snaps, a lot of nice numbers in the passing game, not allowing a touchdown. Walker, if you told me that he would be the starter against Fresno State, however it works, you could have Zeke Berry be your nickel, and you could have Wes Walker and Makari Page as your starting safeties. I could see that, depending on how that worked out. I could also see Amir Hall being the corner opposite of Will Johnson, but that's apologies to Jair Hill, and also when it comes down to the nickel spot with Jaden McBurrows. It's just nice when you start talking through there. It's like, okay, this is who you think it's going to be, but okay, now they got some competition. It could be this, and then it depends on how they open up when it comes down to what defense they want to show. It's the same thing with offense sometimes, and actually a lot of times, with however they do things through fall ball, they'll come out and they'll say, we've got 2 starting tight ends. Oh, 2 starting tight ends, or they'll start a fullback, or 2 running backs at the same time. We've seen it all, and you can do the same thing on defense. and it's you earn that in the fall, and it gives the guys a nod, a little carrot through those practices to get ready for the season. Okay, who's going to perform here? That's how we're opening up. Guys want to get that start. Why? You got it. It means a lot. It means a lot. It looks good on TV. Looks good on your resume. Anybody that talks about you is like, oh, this is how many starts he had. It's part of it. So yeah, you want to get that. And so it could be. And if somebody's going to say, oh, it'll definitely be so and so. Okay, I would say it would definitely be the guys that were there last year. I'm definite and Will Johnson. I am 100% for sure if he is healthy that Will Johnson will be your starting corner when they open the season. And I think the same thing about Makari Page at safety. So then we're talking about nickel, corner 2, and your other safety. So there's 3 spots up for grabs. And yeah, your guess is almost as good as mine. So many of you folks follow it so closely that I'll put a handful of you. Your guess is better than mine. So how about that? I'm trying to stay on top of it. And then the 2 additions, Mangham and Ricky Johnson. You say, well, is this too many guys? Is there something going on with the guys that are there? That's a fair question. I don't have the answer to know that they're down on this player or so-and-so got hurt. So, or this guy's actually not going to be on the team, those kind of things. Again, fair question. But at this point right now, I don't think so. I think they're just loading up. Can't have too many guys back there. And the transfer portal is closed. So let's say you were a corner at Michigan and you did not put your name into the transfer portal. And then all of a sudden they're bringing in corners and safeties left and right. And you're like, I'm out of here. Well, you can transfer, but then you have to give up a season and you can't until early December. I think it's December 4th is the next time the transfer portal window opens. So a lot of interesting moving parts and how all that works out. Whether you decide as a player, you're like, wow, you got a lot of options. If you hit the transfer portal, you can, teams vying for your services and, promises of playing time or money, maybe both. But if you stick and stay where you're at, well, then the team, in this case, Michigan, could just add players to your position. If I'm Jair Hill, it's like, all right, post spring, ready to roll, let's go. Oh, okay, here's the kid that's coming in from Albany. Oh, wait a second, who's this kid? You're a Hall. They're bringing in a corner, and then you're like, okay, you're Jair Hill. You're like, hey, we're like, now here's Ricky Johnson. It's like, wait a second, what's going on here? And what do you hear when you talk to former players or coaches? They throw out the cliche, steel, hardened steel. Competition is great. Expectations for the position, all those things. And if you're a fan, you just want the best player out there. But that could be tough things for guys that are in a spot that are thinking they're looking pretty good, and then boom, you get not 1 but 2 guys that are coming in. Believe me, those guys that are coming in are thinking they want a spot. They want to be Josh Wallace, who came from UMass last year and was such a big part of Michigan's secondary and a big part of Michigan's championship team. So that's what's going on. One other thing, I'll get to some feedback before I get to that question of the day. I looked at last year's portal and then this year's portal. Last year, Michigan brought 10 players in via the portal. This year, 9. A lot of times people say 9, but they forget about the Hollenbach addition. And Hollenbach, didn't play, but he was there in spring, and he was a transfer from Mississippi State. Even though he didn't play for Mississippi State, he was a transfer. But if you break it down, if you take Hollenbach off, the comparison of the portals is somewhat interesting. Michigan brought in a kicker last year in in Turner, and then they bring in a place kicker this year. Same thing. On defense, Michigan last year brought in 3 players on defense and 3 players on offense. And then last year, Michigan brought in 5 players on offense, and this year, 5 players on defense. You get it as you walk through it. 23, 5 on offense, 24, 3 on offense. You get the picture. So some symmetry, I guess, if however you're looking at it. If and you only need to just pull off the one guy that didn't play, and then you can say, hey, they both had 9 transfers, 1 special teams, and it was just different with the 5 and 3 on offense. But so when you're in the off season and you're looking at things and you're looking at the portal, there was a thought when Michigan was stuck on. It was a thought myself. Barham and Pre was like, is Michigan going to be adding anybody else? Are they just going to be sitting? They got a late start, and it's like last year they added 10 players. They're just going to sit here at 2. Let's go, Sharon. Let's get it going. But Sharon, with his plan and however he got it going, we'll see. How much these guys contribute, because last year Jack Tuttle was the backup quarterback for Michigan before he got hurt. Ladarius Henderson was your starting left tackle when he was healthy and was able to get out there. Miles Hinton had 4 or 5 starts for Michigan last year. And Drake Nugent at center, he started all games for Michigan. So there was a huge impact that those guys had. I already mentioned about Turner and his impact on the national championship. And then the guys on defense, the 3 guys, and only one, as Wallace was the starter, Josh Wallace, so we mentioned at corner. But as everyone knows now, Josiah Stewart was huge at edge for Michigan, and the other transfer, Ernest Hausman, did get some. He got some burn. I don't think he didn't get any starts, but he played. And he looks pretty good, and he's someone you don't have to sit around saying, I know ball or whatever else. You just watch the games, and when Hausman comes in, you're like, this guy's built like a prototypical linebacker. Oh, he gets sideline to sideline, and he can hit. He's a good player. Ernest Hausman's a good player. So Michigan hit the jackpot last year with the transfer portal. And, so now they come back with another 9, and how many of these guys and how impactful they will be, we're going to have to wait until the season starts. But the guys at the very top would be the ones that I would say are going to be the most impactful. And that's Preeb and Barnum, and then Zavada, who's going to be the kicker. And if you could say, hey, you could only have 3 as impact guys, these would be the 3 that you would pick: Preeb, Barham, and Zavada. The rest of these guys, I don't know. Amarian coming back, he's got the athletic ability. Charleston is a flyer. And then the rest of these, maybe one of them at corner, whether it's Hall or whether it's Johnson, gets themselves in the 2 deep. That's not a big, statement or anything. And then the same thing with the safety, getting yourself involved in the rotation. Wesley Walker, and then Jaden Mangham. Maybe even a starting spot could be in the offering. And then, always have depth is great to have. A starting 11 is great. And then until you need that depth, and then it's a pretty big deal when you need that depth. That's what we're talking about. Let's take some of the feedback before I get you that question of the day. Or should I get the question of the day and then you can answer the question and then I can get the feedback? I think, is that what we want to do? I think that is probably the way to go about it. All right. So the question of the day, I was thinking about this upcoming season. And then I said, I got to get fired up a little bit more for the upcoming season. And what would you do for that? Well, go back and watch last season. And then I thought, the highlights from last year, we talk about, this play, that play, which is all fun. And it's kind of comes in with that. When you think about last year and you think about highlights, do you have that play from last year of a player that is coming back on this year's team that gives you confidence in this upcoming year? And the play, when I asked that question myself, I will answer it, was in the Michigan Penn State game last year. And it didn't have to do with the 32 straight runs or, Blake Corum or Penn State having the number one scoring D or, Tony Bettini and having a no TRO 90 minutes before kickoff. It had nothing to do with that. It was the Penn State running back who broke through the Michigan defense on his longest run of the day, and big 78, Kenneth Grant, who weighs, I don't know what he weighs, anywhere from 320 to 350 would be a nice guess if you put that range out there. But at 335, here was Grant. So, do you have to run 15, 20 yards down the field? Something like that. He catches the running back from Penn State, snatches him down to the ground. That is a play from last year and a highlight that has me encouraged about Michigan this upcoming season, and specifically Kenneth Grant. When you're that big and can make that kind of play, I was encouraged after spring ball last year. I think that Kenneth Grant played every snap in the spring game, and I thought there was a reason behind that. Kenneth Grant's this big dude. And a lot of times when you think about big, you even say it, big fat tackles, that you just put the guy in there and you're just like, just get down there and occupy some blockers. You don't have to do anything and free up some other guys. And, Grant fits the, big, gigantic tackle, but he's not just down there occupying space or taking on double teams. He is I have the suspicion that Grant's ceiling is very high. When I took a look at Kenneth Grant when he came in to talk to the media on one of the Mondays last year. Now, sometimes when guys come in, Miles Hinton's one that, he comes in and you look and he's like, this guy looks like he's physically one of the most impressive humans that I've ever seen, especially, when you're going to play football. He's just, I said he looks like Larry Allen. Reminds me of Larry Allen. He used to play for the Cowboys, Hall of Fame offensive lineman, the greatest guard, one of the greatest guards in NFL history. That's how Hinton looked. When I knew Kenneth Grant was coming in, I'm like, oh, this is going to be something. Kenneth Grant is going to walk in there and I'm just going to be blown away by, his physique. And I wasn't. But Kenneth Grant looked like he was about 14 years old, and he looked like he had a lot of baby fat on him. I say that all affectionately. I think he's just a man child. And I think, another year in the weight room, at the training table, with the tools that he has, just me taking, I think that the sky is the limit. And then that part, how many guys at his size are running down the field, grabbing running backs from behind? Not many, if any, on any level, are making plays like that. So that was a long answer. You can't give that long of an answer, but I can when you put the play in there. A highlight of a play from last year of a returning player that gives you confidence this year. My answer, Kenneth Grant. Now we get to the feedback, and let's see what the people are saying. John, who's been on a run feedback-wise, a good run. John says Sharon went with the throw spaghetti against the wall strategy for the DB room in the portal. Maybe they've got their entire staff. Now you can have so many people on the staff. There's no limit. So when I say so many people, you can have, sound like Donald Trump. We've got so many people. They've got so many staff members watching every level of football and grading, I find it fascinating because we spend so much time with high school recruiting at all the different services, all the different people, and they all, have their own scouting systems in how they're evaluating 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. And then you get to the college game and the pros, they've got their own evaluation, but now Michigan has to have their own separate evaluation of all of these players everywhere across the country, because if they end up getting into the transfer portal, and then certainly once they're in the transfer portal, we need every bit of tape that we have on Ricky Jackson III in his 4 years at UNLV. Let's, if I was part of that tape room committee, they would say, "Hey, here's 8 hours of Ricky Jackson III. He's in the transfer portal. Grade him out, and then you're in there." And so, how much is it just, oh, this guy's in the portal? Woo! No, I mean they've evaluated him, and it's the late portal season. Do I think they're like the number one guy that they had on their list? Probably not, especially in the late going. But it's such an inexact science getting the players in, and you don't know, and having some depth in here. They like something about them. So I don't know if they are just throwing it against the wall. The part about this, John, I remember that back in the day in college football, back when Michigan won in 97. So we're talking about the 20th century, and people were talking about great football programs. A lot of times Nebraska got mentioned. And one of my favorite college football players of all time, non-Michigan, was Tommy Frazier, the quarterback at Nebraska. I loved watching Tommy Frazier. That kid was a great football player. He's just one of the all-time greats. Let's say, why is Nebraska so good? Well, before there was the 85 scholarship limit, Nebraska had like 150 guys. And in 65 of them, if it was an 85 scholarship limit, the 50 or 60 of them would have went elsewhere. But they had all these guys that would just walk on, and the black shirts and everything. They just had an incredible number. Well, now because of NIL, that you can just add as many players. Like you start counting up scholarships. Michigan has more than 85 scholarships. They're over 100. Well, not all of those guys are on scholarship. They're on NIL scholarship. Like they're paying their own way plus whatever they get in name, image, and likeness. And I get a little NIL fatigued. And believe me, I feel it myself at times when we're talking about high school recruiting, and I see it inevitably, especially when a big name goes somewhere, and especially on top of that, when Michigan is in on that player, you'll see people say Michigan needs to get their NIL game together. Well, they have it together via the transfer portal, and they have it together when you start counting up the scholarships and how they've attacked it, the portal for the last 2 years. And given the late start, I don't know how these players are going to be, all of them. The couple that we talked about early, I think are gold for sure. But last year's transfer portal, I'll give Michigan an A. And that had to do with NIL. And then this year, and just looking at it, guessing, I'm giving them definitely more than a passing grade with the players and the need and where they're at right now. So I'm at a B. So maybe it's that way, but I feel pretty good about it. Safety depth. John on a little bit of a heater here. He's hoping that McBurrows and Mangham get picks against MSU this year. Yeah, well, Mangham, the former Spartan, and then McBurrows was, of course, the one that got roughed up in the tunnel. So, yeah, if we could pick who gets the picks against MSU this year, yeah, Mangham and McBurrows. I'm going to say this, and it's true. I don't care if one of those guys gets a pick six and then they get flagged for 15 yards for unnecessary celebration. I'm all right with it. I'm saying it right now. Alfred, will we get a 12th player to fill the last scholarship for basketball? Maybe. I would say, why not take a flyer on a grad transfer? That's what I was thinking with Juwan Howard last year. Why not get a just spot up specialist as a shooter? Why not get just a point guard? So I would say yes, that Dusty would do that. He'll find somebody. Somebody will free up. I was still hoping that they got two, but I don't know. I guess Jace Howard is going to be on the team. What can you say? I don't know. More on that later, not later today, but later on with that whole situation. Mark is talking about Makari Page. Moore, really third team. Mangham is a quality ad. Likes the addition. Sab was not all Big Ten honorable mention, but some big plays late. Good returning DBs. Maybe OSU transfer comparable. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have to look through the entire list of what Ohio State has done. I don't have that, but I know at the top end, Caleb Downs is a great player, and so's Judkins. Those two. Oh yeah, they're quarterbacks. So there's three. So maybe. I'm not going to defend Ohio State. So Mark, I'm with you. Comparable to OSU, I'm with you. Here's MGB. He likes the defense. I'm with you. OT is talking transfers. He's welcoming everyone in. Nothing wrong with that. And there we are. OT says Walker is tall, fast, and athletic. I hope he can add being a deep threat. Good luck, Amarian Walker. Go show everyone what you got. We support you. Well, there you go. I like it. Now let's go to the question of the day. If you're just joining us, I ask you for a highlight of last year from a Michigan football player that is coming back this year that gives you confidence in this upcoming season. A highlight of a play from last year of a returning player that gives you confidence this season. All right, let's go to John, who says Josiah Stewart pancaking the Alabama tackle on the last play of the Rose Bowl is the play that comes to mind. John, that one really rings a bell with me too. That's why as soon as I had mine of Kenneth Grant chasing down the running back from Penn State, I started thinking like, ooh, yeah, Stewart, what a play. As you think about it, I wanted both Braden McGregor, Jalen Harrell, and Junior Colson all to come back. I wanted Michigan to dole out the cash. Now, Colson was a pretty high pick. McGregor and Harrell, maybe they were thinking, I wish we would have come back. But because Stewart and Derek Moore, the way they came on and both of them being in on that final play, it makes you feel like those guys are starters and that Michigan won't miss a beat at their most important position. Certainly the one that has been, from Hutchinson to Ajabo to Mike Morris, and then what they were able to do last year, you feel pretty good about it. That one is pretty good. And this is one that if you want to feel good about Michigan football in this upcoming year, you go with what Ferris has typed in on the feedback. And he just types the Don championship game. Donovan Edwards, 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. That's all Michigan would need. As they won the game 34-13, they just needed the 2 Dono runs. Donovan Edwards from 41 yards. Donovan Edwards from 46 yards. Donovan Edwards, 6 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns in the national championship game. Do those plays give you confidence in Michigan this year? You bet they do. It reminded me of 2 weeks ago when the Don got the front cover of EA Sports, and I saw a lot of the rivals throwing up his numbers like, this guy, this is this guy is the one that comes up gigantic in big games. And when you think about star quality and the kind of players it takes to win, difference makers, Edwards has it. Now, he might not be that back that you would pick to build. Blake Corum would be that guy. You pick like, this is the perfectly constructed running back. He can do it all. The Don is a home run hitter, and he can turn a 5-yard carry into 75 yards pretty quick. Just like he can turn that 41 and 46 yards just like that in a national championship game. Excellent job, Ferris. That should give everybody quite a bit of confidence when you're talking about a play. And I was just talking about one play, but it's hard to separate the first quarter. Did I like the 46-yard run better, or did I like the 41-yard run better? I like the 41-yard run better because it just broke the seal. You're watching the game, you're sitting there chewing your finger, and everything else, and then boom! And you felt there was an explosion of confidence with Edwards. Woo! Edwards does give you that. He gives you the confidence. That's it. Okay, now, do we have others? Jelinek just says Barham's going to be excellent. And other players that you're looking for, we're just getting some confirmation that Barham's going to be great. Let's say it's just a prediction. Here's a good one. OT56 says the T-Mo, so they call him Tyler Morris. They touchdown in the Alabama game. OT's got a couple. How about Morgan's punt return against Iowa? Couple awesome touchdown catches. Give me great faith. Our receivers are playmakers. OT, let's go with both of those. And again, you're just joining us. We're looking for that highlight from last year of a returning player that makes you think that Michigan could be a good team this year. And yeah, Tyler Morris, we're talking specifically about wide receivers. That play, you guys make plays in practice. Making plays, this is cliche too. You're making big time plays in big games. That was a big time play in a big time game as Tyler Morris. And then sometimes you just have a great vantage point, and the camera had a sideline shot of Morris with that run, and he just looked like a pro. He looked like a superstar. And coming out of spring, when you listen to anybody talk about the Michigan wide receivers, they made it clear that that's Tyler Morris, that he's the one, that he's the, I don't know what he had, alpha. Sometimes get on people that use alpha too much, and here I am using it. He's the alpha of the Michigan wide receiver room. He's the guy right now. You say, hey, who's the top dog for Michigan wide receivers? And according to the players and the coaches, it's Tyler Morris. And you could see, based on what we saw in the Rose Bowl, of that one incredible touchdown catch, that it was that he was pretty special. Now, Samaj Morgan, when he had the 87-yard punt return, not for a touchdown in the Big Ten championship game, that was a head turner. But when you go to, what was it, Purdue, Samaj Morgan had a 44-yard run. And then Samaj Morgan, it's not so much that, what did you call them, awesome touchdown catches. He just, you get Samaj Morgan, he would be like a guy you had put in a room with 10 other people, and then he could just weave his way. You just threw him. There was the both of his touchdown runs. They're, little catches that you think about out in the flat. And then he just kind of moves through the trash and just finds his way. and it gets into the end zone. Reminded me the first time I saw old Antonio Brown, the good Antonio Brown, pre-CTE, before late in the Steelers, prime Antonio Brown, or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like comparisons for Samaj Morgan. And then he's not just who was the AJ Henning was a tremendous football player for Michigan, a tremendous returner for Michigan, and they would get him, but he struggled catching the ball at times. Morgan, you get him out. I remember just a little curl. I don't even remember what game he was, but put his hands out, made himself available, threw the ball in there, caught it, turned upfield. It's like, this guy is, Samaj Morgan could be something special. So I'm with you on that, OT. Both Tyler Morris and Samaj Morgan. I feel pretty good about both of those guys, and those are the plays that you are talking about. Chris, he's looking for a play from the spring game, maybe, that we're talking about here. Moose is just talking, Mason Graham. Is there a Mason Graham highlight that you think about? I think about Mason Graham in all of the big games. Mason Graham seems to stand out. You get him early in the Rose Bowl, it's Mason Graham. You get into the championship game, and it's Mason Graham. He's making the individual play. Ohio State, again, Graham. Mason Graham is in there. The whole Penn State game of the different plays that Mason Graham, I can remember, this is the last year, so 2 years ago. A true freshman, and then what was it? Was it their first Big Ten game? It was. At Iowa, Mason Graham, a fourth down. Mason Graham makes the play. I mean, this guy, Mason Graham, if that was your lead if you just said, I don't have a specific play, but Mason Graham gives me the most confidence in Michigan, being a defensive tackle at the point of attack, that's a playmaker that could be the best. In fact, he's ranked. I mean, why wouldn't we just call him the best defensive tackle in the country? Not one of the best defensive tackle in the country. That gives you a lot of confidence in Michigan? Yes. Yeah, I'll be with you on that. Mason Graham. Robert getting in, and he's just talking about all these new DBs need to learn a new defense. Unlikely any are starters day one, maybe mid-year or 2025. Excuse me, for those with eligibility. Yeah, I mean, that's a thought that could be true, and certainly it is. Like, they're going to have to learn the defense, but it was just last year that they just dropped Josh Wallace. He wasn't in for spring. They just dropped him in there, and then, and he did come on late in the year, to your point there. But yeah, I mean, they got Josh Wallace late, and he just thought, that's just little added depth or whatever else. No, he was good to go. Jelly loves the Ferris State tight end coach. I'm Ferris State. Kasula, who was at UMass, and then it has the Ferris State connection. There you go. I like how people are just excited about Cole. So, like, I'm asking you a play from last year that gets you excited, and Cole Sullivan's being mentioned the most here about guys that excite you for seeing for the play. So there you go. Not bad. Derek Moore, the turnover against Maryland. Yeah, Derek Moore is an incredible edge player. Could Derek Moore be like, could he be a future first-round pick? Who says no here today? I wouldn't say no. I would say yeah. Speaking of spring games, not this last one, but the year before, it was Derek Moore that came out there, and The look test isn't everything, but it's not nothing. I remember seeing Derek Moore out there in his 8 jersey, and I'm like, this guy, Derek Moore, he looks like he's a 5-year NFL defensive end. I mean, that's how he looked. Now, the first time I saw him was in the All-Star game that he played before he came to Michigan. He had committed, or did he commit right after that, or they committed right before? Whatever. Probably right before, because I watched it. And in that game, you're looking at him, you're like, wow, this guy looks like a defensive end. Why didn't he get ranked higher? I mean, so I don't know. I'd have to look at all of those guys and all the tape and everything else. But Moore's one where you look at, like this guy, everything about him looks like he's going to be a first-round pick. Looks like he should have been a 5-star. So I don't know. Maybe it was the school that he played. Yeah, the TFL and OT against Alabama. Boom, there's the specific one for Mason Graham. Nice job, AG. I feel like, if I had a bell, which I do around here somewhere, I would ring it. If I had some prizes, where's that old bell? There it is. Correct. That's a great one. Richard. Talking Donovan Edwards. That rings the bell, too. Coming down to it. I'm not sure about this, but Richard, it would be nice if you were right when you're saying the entire offensive line will be great again. I'm not sure about that, but if that's going to be the case, I'm just going to take what you're laying down here for a second, Richard. If Michigan's offensive line is going to be great this year, then Michigan's going to have a great season. As while I focus in on the quarterback, and it's a huge story with Michigan, out of all of the teams in college football, quarterback is not, it's important, but right there with it is the running back and offensive line. And there's no other team really, because there's no really other teams that are playing. As Ole Miss runs the ball, maybe you want to put them in there. I'm not talking about the service academies. I'm talking about Power 5 or now whatever it is. There's not even, what are we talking? Power 2? Whatever it is. I guess I'm going to have to learn that. What is it? Power 3? Because we don't have the Pac 12 anymore. So are we talking P4? Out of the P4? Who else is playing Michigan's game? Probably more teams this year. So that's it. Late, we get Sam coming in late. Talking Josiah Stewart. That one was talked about. Morgan's TD versus Indiana would be the play I think of when it comes to him. Yeah, he was great on that one. On that play. Let's see if we had some other highlights. I don't know what that means. Mark talking overtime and Graham. Jelinek adding that Graham did that with a club on his hands. That is that's good. I'm sorry, I forget what the foolishness is that you're talking about. Maybe I mentioned politics. David just hoping for a Gentry to become the next great Michigan offensive lineman. That would be nice. Old Miss top 7 minus Judkins feels like a stretch. Okay. You were the one that wanted to compare Michigan's transfer class in with OSU's. And they're bringing in their starting quarterback. So, that seems to be a pretty big deal. But again, I'll pick Michigan's. You're on the Maize and Blue Review. Okay, turning the page to what I saw earlier today from ESPN. They had a top 25 post-spring reveal. ESPN's top 25 post-spring top 25 ranking. Here it is. Number 1, Georgia, followed by OSU, followed by Texas, followed by Oregon. Michigan lands at 10. Should you be upset that the defending champs are at number 10? That would be the first thing. And I'll say no. I'll say no. You lose Harbaugh, the entire offense, and with the exception of Loveland, and you got a murderous guy. All those things you put in there and say, I'm not going to have them number one. Could they be top 5? You got the other. I think 10 is fine. Can you make a case for them to be a little bit higher? Sure. But week 2, you don't have to play this game for very long. Because week 2, Michigan's playing number 3, Texas. And if Michigan beats Texas, which I think that they will, then Michigan heading into week 3, they're going to be in the top 5 for sure. So it doesn't matter if Michigan was 5, you'd say, oh, Michigan's top 5. Might sound better, it looks good. Makes you feel good, and then people can say when you're at 10, I only care about where they're ranked at the end of the year. It's all good, but it would look good on TV week 2. Number 3 Texas versus at number 5 Michigan. Sounds a little bit better than number 3 Texas at number 10 Michigan. Okay, but right around there. But again, the thing is when Michigan beats Texas in week 2, they'll be top 5 by week 3, and then off they go. Because then they have games. Nobody's going to be saying Michigan hasn't played anyone, because we all know that they pretty much play everyone. And if you're saying, well, what do you mean? Well, ESPN's top 25 post-spring ranking, Michigan's playing all these teams. OSU, Texas, and Oregon. They played 3 of the top 4 on the schedule. So yeah, Michigan's they're loaded with their schedule here. I just made this was not what ESPN had wrote next to their rankings. This was my thoughts on the teams that Michigan is going to play in the top 10, starting with Ohio State, a 4-peat. That doesn't sound that's got a nice ring to it. Could you just imagine? When Michigan beat Ohio State, it was such with the snow in 21, everyone felt so great. It was just such a great feeling. Then they validated it with a win in Indy to win the Big Ten championships, and then they went to the college football playoff. For a lot of people, it kind of felt like you just died and went to heaven. And then they did it again. They did it again down at Ohio State without Blake Corum, with the one-armed bandit. And it was like lightning has struck twice. That Michigan is back. They followed it up again, validating it with a championship in Indianapolis against Purdue. They were in the college football playoff. I mean, the TCU was a little bit of a downer for sure. But then last year, 3 in a row. So just thinking about, you say, if you're just a diehard college football fan, what gets you going? What makes you feel? What gets you going in the summer months when you're in the dog days waiting for college football? You think about beating Ohio State 4 times in a row. That's what you do. That's going to do the trick for you. You want some tonic when you're feeling down? Think about beating Ohio State 4 times in a row. That'll do it. Texas. My read on Texas is that they are going to have a good offense, but they got lots of questions on defense. Their pass defense was terrible last year, one of the worst in college football, but their run defense was really good. But their big names are all in the pros now, and are they just ready to reload? They recruit well, but I got questions for the Horns on defense. Good offense, but questions on defense? Oregon. They'll be in Ann Arbor on November the 2nd. They got a quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. And they got Dan Lanning. You know what I say when it comes to college football? Tell me who the coach is. Tell me who the quarterback is. They've got 2 of the best in the business going here across the country. Georgia's got the best combination of, I know it takes more, but give me coach, give me quarterback. Give me coach, give me quarterback here with Oregon and what they have built there. This is going to be a tough one, but in Ann Arbor, you like that part. And then, the defending champs. And that's That's what you like about Michigan this year is, yeah, Texas looks really good. So does Oregon. Man, they look really good. Michigan is both of those teams at home. That looks really good. I think Michigan, they get a, what did I say? They don't have a chance. Michigan's got a chance in those games. It's hard to not, but then it's also hard to spin things forward all the way to, at Ohio State because we don't know what's going on. But I tell you what, Michigan has one loss heading into that game at Ohio State. Am I going to be sitting around going, oh my God, I don't know, but Ohio State's so great? No, that's not at all what I'm going to be saying. And nobody else is either. People are going to be talking about Michigan going down and beating Ohio State for a fourth time in a row. And it'll feel a little bit like if let's just, I'm going to do it for a minute. If Michigan beats Ohio State this year, it's going to feel a little bit like, I'm going to say, the 2018 season for Michigan. Or is it? Yeah, it was, let's see. No, the 2019 season. The 2019 season, I was getting close to being at wit's end with Michigan not being able to beat Ohio State. They were 0 for 4, as you know. And then they would end up being 0 for 5. But heading into the season, I was looking coach and quarterback. And Urban Meyer gets pushed out, however you'd want to put it. It had to leave because of an incident on his team. He's pushed out at Ohio State. So they got a new coach. Number one thing that's going to be important in all of college football, Ohio State's getting a new coach. And they're getting a new quarterback. He ended up being pretty good. New quarterback, new coach. Plus, Michigan had a returning quarterback in Shea Patterson. I was expecting a little bit of a bump there from Shea Patterson. He didn't really get the biggest bump. But also the game was at home. I say all these things because that's got to be going through Ohio State fans' minds. They're like, Jim Harbaugh is gone. J.J. McCarthy is gone. This game is in Columbus. They got to be thinking all these things. If not now, when? That's got to be in their minds as they think about, we went out and killed it in the transfer portal. We squeezed every nickel out of everywhere we could to pay to. This is the highest payroll team. I don't know if they are or not. There's Oregon saying, wait a second, what about us? They're up there. They you can do it. They spend your money, but all of that, Michigan's in their head. How could they not be thinking all that? We've got everything. This is it. All of the things. It was like that in 19. I was thinking, Justin Fields, I know he's a 5-star. Shea Patterson was a 5-star. I remember watching the first game. I think it was against Cincinnati. I'm like, oh, well, they got another quarterback. But Day, Fields, at Ann Arbor, Michigan with a returning quarterback. It was going to be then or never. Of course, it wasn't true. Although the following year was pretty painful. They didn't get to play. We all know. But, it was the great turnaround story. So that's it. That's where I'm at. Let's take a last few. Looks like some people getting in here late on the show. We started at 2:00. Is the start time to the show, but better late than never. Thinking about a beat down. Eddie is thinking about the 2019 game. Loring adding the Tyler Morris touchdown against Bama. Yeah, that was mentioned. The Dogs will be undefeated. Yeah, I don't I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to pick a team to beat Georgia right now. Georgia looks like they're number one, and I think that I wouldn't mind seeing Michigan. I haven't really thought about this because last year it's like everything that you wanted, came true. Michigan won all their games and everything else. So, what could top that? If you're going to pick Michigan beating the team in Georgia that embarrassed them, back when they were in the Orange Bowl, that would beating an undefeated Georgia team, that would be nice if we're making a little short list. I don't know. TCU can't get back there. Maybe Michigan can schedule it. You do this, they'll schedule them in 5 years. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. But the Georgia thing, and none of the players will be the same either. Kirby Smart will be over there. Let's do it. Loring's talking about Colston Loveland's his big time catch in the Natty. Yeah, Colston Loveland, a lot of catches that he made, but yeah, you should feel good about Colston Loveland. Great player. The Don will be wearing a 10-gallon Texas hat after Michigan brands the Texans. I like it. Old MD's talking about OSU has a weak offensive line. Well, that's their Achilles heel. That's what Michigan will be going after. Jim hoping that just Michigan never loses another game. Yeah, let's do it. That'd be something. Never lose another game. I'll take, yeah, I'm there. I'd never thought about it. Michigan football never loses another game. Boy. Let's see a 4-P. Let's see a trip. I wouldn't mind seeing a repeat of the national championship. Sure. Wouldn't mind seeing a 4-P for sure. I mean, that 4-P would be up there. You're giving me some kind of wish list. Never losing another game is not a bad one. If we're playing this game, just go back to back. National champion. Imagine what that would mean. I'm not quite there yet, but I am on the 4-Pete. I am feeling the 4-Pete and then making the 12-team playoff. That's about as far as the dream scenario, I think, goes right now. Endlessly undefeated, it's going to take me a while to get there. Even a repeat as national championship, not quite ready to do that, although I was entertaining, taking on Georgia, an undefeated Georgia team, how great that would be. Okay, I'd like to see Georgia again. Sure. All of that. But I am entertaining a 4-P today and going to the 12-team playoff. If Michigan gets the 4-P, they're going to the 12-team playoff. Well, they'll probably have a bye in the 12-team playoff. I'll take a bye as we sit here right now. I also wouldn't mind, but I mean, if you're asking me, I'll take the 4-P and the bye. I also wouldn't mind if Michigan makes the 12-team playoff if they had a home game in the first round ever of the college football playoff and they were hosting a Southern team. If somehow Florida was at LSU, ooh. If it's not a 4-P and a bye in the 12-team playoff, give me the 12-team playoff with Michigan hosting LSU on December 5th. How many days are in November? 30, I think. And Michigan plays Ohio State on the 30th. So December 7th. Michigan, LSU. Oh, wait, no, sorry. That'll be the Big Ten championship game. The following week, right? There's no other, this is just happening. Week. There's no bye. So you're going December the 7th is the Big Ten championship game. December the 14th is the first round of the college football playoff. And if Michigan in this scenario is hosting the first round game, that would be it. December 14th. Can you imagine the weather December the 14th, Michigan LSU. Old Brian Kelly gonna be war. Awful cold up here for us Southerners. Putting out that fake accent. Bring him on. Let's do it. Jim's just fired up. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks so much for watching this show. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, why not join? I don't know where that sound came from. Why not join the Maize and Blue Review? Go to michigan.rivals.com to get that done. We'll see you over there talking Michigan all day, all night, recruiting and everything else. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching. Let's end this while we